Muslims, who died on the cross? You guys are telling me you don't believe Jesus died on the cross. Well, Surah 4157 says that Allah made it appear Jesus was crucified. So people believe what they see. If Allah made it appear Jesus was crucified, then someone died that day. Some translations say that he made them think he was crucified. Well, either way, whoever wrote Surah 4157, they put Allah in a bad position. Because if he did that, he is the reason why we are Christians. He set the whole thing up, okay? We are Christians because we believe Jesus Christ died on the cross. If Allah made it appear Jesus was crucified and he really wasn't, then that is deception. And he started a whole new religion called Christianity, the #1 religion in the world that surpasses Islam. Yes. So my question to you or any of your scholars, who died on the cross according to the Quran? I'm getting all kind of answers. It was a lookalike. It was a companion. It was Simon. It was a Roman soldier. It was Judas. It wasn't Judas. Judas was a devil.
Christians often challenge Muslims about the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. But let's explore what history and early Christian traditions actually reveal. The crucifixion, as we know it today, wasn't a part of early Christian beliefs. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches that Jesus didn't die on a cross, but from a stab wound. Early Christians didn't use the cross as a symbol of their faith either. Minucius Felix, a Christian father from the 3rd century, said, "As for the adoration of crosses which you object against us, I must tell you that we neither adore nor desire them. You, it is ye pagans who are the most likely people to adore wooden crosses." It wasn't until centuries later, at the 7th Council of Constantinople in 707 AD, that the image of Jesus on a cross was officially adopted. Before that, the symbol of early Christianity was a lamb, not a man on a cross. What about the resurrection? The earliest gospel, Mark, doesn't even describe Jesus appearing after his death. The original version ends at Mark 16:8 with Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome finding an empty tomb. A man sitting inside tells them Jesus has risen, but there's no appearance of the resurrected Christ. Later gospels added to the story, but their accounts are full of contradictions. For example, Mark says 3 women found the tomb. Matthew says it was 2, Mary Magdalene and another Mary. Luke names multiple women, including Joanna. John says Mary Magdalene went alone. Mark says a young man was sitting inside the tomb. Luke says 2 men were standing inside. Matthew and John claims angels were present, but they disagreed on how many. Reginald Fuller, a biblical scholar, explained, "The best way to discredit a witness in court is to show inconsistencies in their testimony. The resurrection narratives are full of contradictions." Even Kenneth Woodward, writing for Newsweek, said, "By itself, the empty tomb, one of Christianity's most enduring images, does not prove anything. The idea of a resurrected Christ wasn't introduced by Jesus' original followers. Paul, not the disciples, is responsible for crafting the theological framework of a resurrected Savior. In fact, early Christians didn't expect to see Jesus after his death. They mourned him as a great prophet, not as someone who would return from the grave. The earliest version of Christianity focused on his teachings, not his resurrection. As Good Ludman notes in What Really Happened to Jesus, the earliest community didn't know where Jesus was buried. The rediscovery of the tomb centuries later is a pious legend with no connection to reality. In the earliest days of Christianity, followers of Jesus didn't celebrate his resurrection. Instead, they observed the Jewish Passover, believing it to commemorate the Last Supper. The focus was on the meal Jesus shared with his disciples, not on his rising from the dead. As Christianity distanced itself from Judaism and absorbed pagan influences, the narrative shifted. The resurrection replaced the Passover as the central event. The Roman Church even moved the celebration to a Sunday, aligning it with the pagan festival of the sun. Scholar Ernest Renan noted that the earliest representations of the resurrection didn't appear until centuries later, and even then, they were heavily influenced by Roman art and myth. The resurrection story wasn't unique to Christianity. Long before Jesus, other cultures had similar myths. Krishna of India, Osiris of Egypt, and Mithra of Persia were all said to rise from the dead. Kersey Graves wrote in The World's 16 Crucified Saviors, Quetzalcoatl of Mexico, Krishna of India, Prometheus of Greece, and Mithra of Persia all rose from the dead after 3 days and were celebrated as saviors. Paul borrowed these symbolic elements to create the image of a Christian savior. The historical Jesus, a prophet of God, never taught his followers to worship him. The earliest Christians revered the black God of Israel, not a Romanized image of Jesus. The crucifixion and resurrection stories are symbolic, not historical. It's time to separate myth from the truth.